Shouts out to the FBI. The ones that's working Asia degree case. They watch everything. I'm sure they're watching this as well. Trust and believe they watch everything in which has Asia degree's name stamped on it. Yes, they do. I'm trying to find her. So shouts out to the FBI. As well as, is it Shelby County Sheriff's Office, Deputy's Office, Mayor's Office? But no, seriously though, they watch everything with her name and face on it. I got a question about her bag. Asia's bag being found buried the way that it was found. Like from the beginning, sorry, my scalp is itching. From the very beginning, when I walked up trying to, scoop up information here on my side, trying to see what happened to the young child, I've been in question since the beginning if Asia's bag could have been planted there the following year, right before her birthday, and not the year before. Does that sound right? The way that her bag was found, not only FBI, because with them, they do forensic science and stuff like that. So depending on the detail of the bag and the wetness, and I'm thinking depending on how the sun hit the bag, despite it being covered in 2 garbage bags, and in the way how the bag settles, like as it's sitting there, that can tell FBI, I guess, through forensic science and all that detail, just how long a bag has been sitting there, and moisture residue being in those 2 bags. I always question if that bag was planted that same year that it was found and not the year before. I don't know why that is. Strange, I know. Anybody could have took a water hose to that bag, and even forensic science will be able to point that out, because even rain is different from, say, regular water hose material. So more than likely that wasn't a possibility. But even somebody could have, in fact, taken that bag and stood out in the rain with it, or even let it sit out in the rain somewhere, just enough to make it seem, yes, on a rainy day, possibly on a rainy night, but more than likely not on that same night in which all her other stuff was found in that shed. I just stand in question of that bag. I don't know why. And I have been since the beginning, because when I first walked up, I'm like, no, that don't make sense. If that girl's bag was found right before her birthday, to me, that didn't really seem like a coincidence. It seemed almost like somebody planted it that same year that it was found, and not planted it the year before, during that time period of when they planted everything else. Strange, don't it sound strange? But I'm just thinking, if somebody would have did say what I just spoke on, if somebody would have took that young girl's bag and planted it on that developing area, the construction site of where the housing, and they used the grading machines and all that contractor, I'm thinking anybody could have possibly took that girl's bag, stood somewhere out in the drenching rain on another whole different day, made it appear possibly like she had it that night when whatever, you know what I'm saying? They could have kept it, I'm saying. They could have kept it and had it somewhere in their own possession and just held onto it until the following year, and then planted it where it was found. That is in fact a stretch, but I don't know. I don't know why. That is just so weird. I kept thinking like, no, that's not right. Because timing is a factor in everything. It's even a factor in relation to the whole Asia degree case. Yes, it is. So I'm thinking to myself, why would a bag be found a year later if somebody knew that that land was going to be under development? Like I've seen, yes, I live more in a city area, kind of almost near suburban, but it's still somewhat city, right? You got busy streets and stuff like that. But I've seen where, say, businesses, say there be land, matter of fact, an area where I'm living at, right across the way, there's like 2 houses being built, which gave me a good example of how long does it take to, say, actually develop an area. Sometimes businesses put signs up a year before and say months later they start working on it, that's why I'm in question of that. I'm completely in question of that, because for somebody to have known, I'm like I said, I'm right across the street from where brand new houses are being built. These are $200,000-$300,000 houses, right? And so months before, there was a sign put up about the actual contractor, whoever is, building the houses out on the land or whatnot. But there's no signs naming what the actual, say, housing area is going to be called. You know how there's houses and then it's a sign when you turn in, because that's more like, depending on gated community, they have signs like that, right? But I remember seeing that sign the year before, and then, hold on, almost, I say about half a year before that, it was like an empty lot. And then like a few months later, they started working on it. Like getting the land. That's what I'm saying. I seen them doing it with my own two eyes. And my mom seen it because she had actually considered moving out where we are and moving over there. And I said, nah, that's not going to work. I want to move out of state. But I just thought that was so interesting. If you know that a land is being developed, and it does take time in order to get that land prepped and prepared, maybe that is why they found it, because when they did, because it does, using the grader machine, they do have to pull up the earth a little bit, the dirt and stuff like that. So maybe that is right, of how you're plowing through and stuff like that. Because if a bag was buried, say, that deep, then somebody wouldn't have been able to see it. And if they did, they probably would have walked right past it. But I just thought that the time period was off. I don't know. It just to me seemed like if there is a depending on how deep the bag was, it had to be buried, but not that deep where a grader machine is really going in, pulling up stuff. It seemed like somebody would have been on that lot the time period before, just enough to see it, wouldn't it? I don't know. That is just so strange. That's a difficult one to analyze and figure out. Because, as I said before, even in other areas, just business, there's like where I live at, when you go farther out, there's in fact business communities, right? And it'd be like big old acres of, like, not real big acres, but a business community is what it serves, business, right? And so that land and all that other stuff has to be gutted just to put buildings and stuff there. But oftentimes men, even the workers, go out on the site, because to develop something is to build it, right? And it's to renew it. So you would in fact walk around and scope that area before it's done. And even during the time period, as well as the process, sometimes even before you get fully started, as in along the way, getting it done. So that's what's so strange when you're developing stuff. I wonder if FBI or even Shelby County Sheriff's Office interviewed the people that was doing the construction. The contractor, I'm sure, well, who knows? Probably not, but him as well as his team of people, as in those that was working for him. I wonder if the sheriff's office, as well as FBI team and all them, when the bag was taken up out of the contractor's hands, if they interviewed all the surrounding people working that area. Because to me that does make sense, but to me that doesn't. Like that don't seem right. Because see, to develop an area is to go out there before it's done. And sometimes, once again, workers get to planting the signs out there right? Because that's usually they take a trailer out there. I don't know how they was doing it with this situation, but they usually take a trailer out there. There's one across the street where I'm at. They got a trailer out there. Not only that, usually on sites like that when they're doing work, they take a trailer out there. So once again, I'm in question of when was this land, like the date and the time precisely of when the contract work was being done for that house, that land where it was supposed to be building a house on top of. That's got to be questioned as well. The development, the area, developing area. Because see, once again, there's a time frame even in that. You just don't go out there. In order to do a design, you have to be somewhere in a building, right? Knowing what you're in fact going to design, as say like the layout and all that other stuff. Contractors work with builders on even that, right? However, whoever does the process and all that, right? But there's floor plans and everything else to all that. As in what you're building. What's the dimension of it? How far you got to go out with, say, maybe a greater machine in relation to square footage and all that other stuff. That all adds together. It all ties together, right? And so if you're somebody and you say want to kidnap a child and set it up, stage it, right? Okay, then more than likely a year before the bag was found, more than likely, however the person planned it, they knew however they was going to plan whatever, right? But I'm thinking, in order for a land, for anybody to know, see, this doesn't make sense to me. This is, and I try not to get mad, but it's just the fact that that was a young baby. She will be an older adult today. That was just, I don't like stuff like that. I do not, that's bothersome. In order for somebody to know that a land was developed, they had to have seen something on the land before, wouldn't they? Like a tractor, a grader, they would have had to seen something, right? So if they seen something before, then why didn't whoever find the bag before? That does not add up. That's not a coincidence. That in itself is a science, as in it's telling something. You mean tell me whoever took this young 9-year-old child knew that there is a land being underdeveloped and they didn't see nothing there pointing them in that direction to show them that the land was under development? That's what I'm trying to say. So whoever kidnapped Asia and possibly killed her, what did they see before the land was going into development in order to point out to them that the land actually was? Was there a sign there? Was there a bulldozer there? Was there a grader machine there? What actually stood there which pointed out to that killer or kidnapper's eyes to let the public know, or let themselves know, that the land is under development enough for them to go over in that area? See, something has to be there in order for you to even notice that it's there, so you can plant something to make it look like it wasn't yourself. That's crazy. Sorry for the drink. I'm thirsty. But I get frustrated about stuff like that because I don't like kidnapping babies like a young Asia, as adorable as she was. Every time I look at her picture, which is about every day, because I'm like, how does this happen? Just looking at her picture is a science, because you're like, okay, a young child like that would possibly be abducted, but she still don't fit the profile as everybody stated. So how is this happening that a land is under complete development or on the way to, and next thing you know, a bag is found a year later? How does that happen? That's almost, you know what, that's like almost a conclusion right there in what I stated. FBI, I'm sure they watching. Hello. Somebody need to go back and ask the contractor or somebody what was in fact there sitting on that land enough just to be seen that that land was under development or on its way to being developed. Because see, If there was no sign there and there was no bulldozer there and there was nothing as in to be found, then more than likely that person had to live right there in that area or possibly next door or somewhere around in the area. As I said before, I kind of considered the parents. Yes, I do. I said that since the beginning. That's not to make anybody mad, but if the girl don't fit the profile, then what does that tell you? What does that show you? That just don't seem right. What? A land has to show something, display something, even from the road, that it is in fact under development. But if a house is being built, what type of sign out in a rural area do they put up? I should, you know what, matter of fact, after I do this video, I should call my grandfather on the phone, because he, in fact, yes, my grandfather used to build houses. I said that, $1 million homes, and which one of them he had, yes, out in North Carolina, Waxhaw to be specific. But that just don't seem right. Something about that is completely off. Something the motion of the time period is off. Because once again, based upon police findings, as in when they found the bag, the contractor, and that water damp residue on that bag should be able to show them the time period of how that bag was sitting there, as in how long, right? But I'm repeating again, and I said it before, anybody could have took that bag on a totally separate different date of the year that it was found and stood somewhere in the rain and let the rain drench it enough to just go and plant the bag, or say not drench it completely, but just enough to get it wet and then put it into garbage bags. I don't know why I thought that. Like some grown man or woman or somebody possibly held onto that bag and then planted it. Because remember, everybody in the public knew who Asia was, and not only that, they knew when her birthday was. Why is a bag just popping up right before her birthday? And not only that, the contractor and all them, when did they get started on the process? The whole process of them digging up whatever they was digging up, because more than likely it was only one home being built there anyways in the first place, wasn't it? So I'm wondering when the date actually was of when that contractor got started digging up that land of where her bag was buried. Asia's book bag, yes, when it was buried, as in the time and the date. Because that's even odd in itself for, say, a contracting crew, construction crew, whatever they do with the grading and all that. That's just strange to me for them to even start the process around the girl's birthday. It could be a coincidence. Yes, it could be, but it just seems odd to me. Like it's out of place. Her book bag in reference to the time period as well as zoning is out of place. And I don't know if anybody else scoped that out. The timeline in relation to that black bag being planted there the way it was. That's what I would love to know. When did the construction site get started? As in, when was whatever dotted on the line to be signed to get the crew up and running? Before they got up and running, who was all the members on the crew during that time period? Right? When did they actually start to formulate base, as in touching ground, on the ground with their footing, making way to plow through to get this whole area all, developed for the home, for the housing? That's a science right there. It's called calculation. As in mathematics, rolling and rewinding back on the tape. See, I have to repeat because people a lot of times they don't pay attention, and then they want to ask you 50 million questions, right? And yet I'm still standing here asking that. The people that developed the land, did they really get started days before Asia's bag was found? Or was a crew of people actually starting that whole whatever days before even that? What is with that? That's just, the measurement is just out of place. I hope FBI got everybody name who was working at crew pertaining to the contractor who found her bag. I hope they got interviewed as well. Because see, I said I felt that it was the parents because she didn't fit the profile. Not only that, for a child to leave supposedly out of her house at that time, I said it before, you don't leave at that time unless abuse is playing a part in your house. Abuse is playing a role for you to even want to run out your house at that time anyway, right? But I also question the contracting crew as well as development of the land. See, that's more important than anything. Because I'm like, well, how is these people? That didn't seem right. Something just don't seem right. The time period almost seems like months off in relation to the development of the land as well. Like, that's what they're due. That's their job, right? I seen lands, how when they put the sign out and then they don't come out till months later, right? But something, I don't know. Because I'm like, that's weird that they found Asia's bag days before her birthday. Yes, everybody did know her birthday. Because to put up a missing person's profile in mass media, it's just that everybody's seeing. But that's strange. That your book bag of all things is found during the time period that somebody is pulling up the land. I was thinking to myself, maybe them developing that land area, I was thinking maybe they did that weeks before or something. That's odd. That's very odd. The whole Asia case is odd. As it stands out the most. Every time I say it stands out the most, I call out different things which do, and yet her whole case is odd. I don't know. Because I'm sure FBI didn't just say, well, we got the bag from the contractor and we forgot to do investigation to see when whoever signed the paperwork documentation pertaining to the land, as well as say the actual documentation on top of that, as in the day that they were to start the land process. I'm sure FBI didn't forget that. I hope and trust that they didn't. Because that in itself will pinpoint who was on that land, when, and where. Even if the parents had something to do with it, that would in fact pinpoint, yes, documentation and pertaining FBI, yes, going back into the contractor's office and pulling them documents on when that land was to be uplifted and torn apart just to develop it. The actual date and time, as well as when that crew was supposed to put their feet right on that land to get started, to pull that stuff up. Because if they were on that land any time before, that would in fact show you that whoever planted that bag planted it somewhere around that time period and not the year before. See what I'm saying? The call out is just to say, I'm the type of person, a lot of people don't like me. And I don't care, because I speak the truth about various things, and more so matters pertaining to this. I said how many times that people were mad because I questioned the parents. But even this is right here, gathering this, somebody's going to get mad. But who cares? Because remember, a young child is missing, isn't she? Or possibly dead. So, I stand and question that. I can question that right now 1,000,000 times in this same video. And yes, I am drinking out of a cookie jar. Yes, I am. My mom's to be in fact. But that is just crazy. And this is Crystal Light. It gets you right. It's about to rain right now. I don't like rain. But yeah, that just, if you are a contracting crew and you're stepping on a developing land, say before you get there, and you're pulling out a grader, I would love so much to know, dear contractor, he might need to watch this too. When was it actually signed and dated on the paperwork material documentation of when you signed? Yes, the contractor and all whoever was getting the land together. When was it for the due date that y'all was in fact supposed to step on that land for the opportunity to dig up? Was it days before Asia, bag was found? Was it a day before? Was it 2-3 weeks before? Was it 6 months before? And not only that, what other housing is supposed to be up in that area? Did that housing development area come last? If other houses are supposed to be, the land built and developed nearby, was that area, was that on the waiting list? Is what I'm trying to ask. I'm in question of that. Trust and believe that's a science itself, in which it tells something. I'm like, you mean to tell me somebody gonna end up turning this video off because how many times I repeat? But even in marketing is a brainwashing tool to make you not forget. Even what I'm saying pertaining to this young child's case. How many times I done made how many videos with her face of the same photo? That's so you never forget her face. While you're out in public driving in traffic and something click in your mind to make you, even the viewer, want to question. That don't add up. So, somebody tell me when in fact was these development whatever going down. As in when the bulldozer and the grader got to moving. Because that's just so odd. I'm thinking to myself, a bag would be found before, wouldn't you think? I don't know why that is. It just seems like a bag would have been found before. Even if it's underground somewhere, right? Because to develop something, you're pushing and crushing stuff. And dear God, I hope they didn't crush her little bones in the process if she was underground somewhere, right? I wonder if FBI considered that. If Asia was in fact buried out there where her bag was at. Because see, that would in fact be the worst thing for a young child to be that age and that cute and look so sweet as she did. That's a pet peeve to me. Yes, pedophiles, as in taking children and not giving them back, right? Even if it's family members doing that stuff and staging it. But that will be the worst thing if young Asia bag was planted out there and her body was in fact buried with it. Because depending on how a grading machine is, don't that sort of thing crush things up manually? I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm gonna have to look that up, because I'm wondering how badly a decomposed body, because see, when you are a body and say you're not put in a bag, or maybe you are, I don't know, however, whoever did what, right? I'm thinking they would more likely have put her in a bag if you're gonna put her bag like that. I just can't see them burying her, strawing her body down in the ground, like putting it in a hole, like it's a cubby hole or something crazy like that, sickness, and then just covering it with dirt patches on top. Because I'm thinking if the grader machine is digging her bag, depending on how deep that was, I wonder even how far they travel, a grader machine. Because see, it's known that your average standard American vehicle, the ground clearance of a car usually stands at 2 to 4 inches. Do I got that right? It's been so long since I studied even that. But the ground clearance, see, you got up clearance of a car, up here, up top, and then you got the ground clearance, right? So, yes, the ground clearance of an American standard car vehicle is 2 to 4 inches, right? But if somebody was to bury a body I'm wondering how deep would that actually be? How deep would that actually be? Because if you're going to be driving a grader machine, that sort of thing has to go somewhat deep, right? But you would think that it would possibly pull up a dead body with it that could be in a bag, right? Or even pull her by her hair or something detailed, depending on, I know it sounds gruesome and gross, but you have to discuss it, right? Depending on the decaying of the body. How quickly does a body rot once it's dead and gone? That's the question. How quick does a body, because I'm thinking if a body is in a bag, it may or may not deteriorate really quickly. But if it's not disclosed in a bag, like closed up in a bag, and it's just put underground, it might deteriorate quickly. I don't know. Only somebody at a funeral home will possibly know that sort of thing. But I just was thinking, man, more than likely if they buried her bag, they had to have buried her somewhere right around in that area or something. And if it's a body, I'm thinking usually you would want to go deep into the ground, which is why I spoke on the ground clearance pertaining to like vehicles. Because I'm thinking a grader machine, I don't know, maybe that would dig almost 2 to 4 inches. That's why I mentioned the ground clearance. Digging up ground, right? If somebody killed her and she's still on the compound area of the developing area where it was, then I'm thinking, I don't know, that it would have been possibly what, dug deep. You would dig the body down there deep in the ground. But more than likely now a house sits on top of it. It has to be, because what was the point of them whatever in the first place? That's just sad. I just got to thinking about that earlier, like, okay, if Asia is dead somewhere under that ground, the worst thing you would ever want to think about is if she was buried with her bag, but much more further deeper down in the ground, and say now a house sits on top of it, as in her body. That is a complete no-go. That's just a mess. You know what I'm saying? That is a mess. And when I said about the parents, if they could possibly have did that, because see, if the parents had something to do with Asia's possible murder, that could be why they planted whatever they did, as in even maybe her body being somewhere underground, under the foundation of where maybe a house possibly stands at. Because see, to never find somebody, it's to point out to never find them, in a sense. Which is, I'm thinking, why somebody would do something like that in the first place, right? Whoever found her, see, whoever found the bag pertaining to her, the contractor was the man that found the bag, right? But more than likely, who's to say whoever did that, they wanted more than likely the bag to be found, right? I spoke on that part before. But I still keep thinking that was a cover-up. I felt in my heart and my soul, I felt that the family killed her. I do sense that, right? But to put her all the way is to like put her all the way where she can't be found, even if it's buried underground, as in under somebody's house. After the house is developed, as in sitting on top of it, sitting on top of the earth where she possibly could have been buried underground. Not alive, but dead, right? People don't think about these sort of things, and yet I do. Because my thing is, what is the point? Say if somebody is a criminal, even if her family has something to do it, and I hope FBI ain't mad about me saying that sort of thing, but the truth is just to look at the situation for which it stands. Why else would somebody bury a bag right there in that area to be found in the development area, they could have buried the bag right over where the shed was. You see what I'm saying? They could have took the time to bury the child's bag somewhere right where that shed is, up just enough for the lady to come find it like she found everything else. You got what I'm saying? But to bury a child's bag the way that whoever put that bag there is to say more than likely the young girl's body was possibly buried somewhere in that area with that bag. But not only that, I just repeated again, the house could be in fact sitting on top of it where she was buried at. Somebody that will in fact want to cover a crime, that's what I'm trying to say, that's what they will do. Does that make sense or does that not make sense? I need a few people to watch this and answer me back, because even myself and me questioning this, it makes totally good sense. I feel that if a family member, whoever could have did this sick crime, perverted, they could have in fact did that to cover years of abuse as well, as in molesting a young child. And whatever, you know what I'm saying, whatever the situation happened with that, saying them possibly killing her and burying her, there has to be a reason why you put a bag right there where a new developing thing is, because to never find a crime is to plant it underground and let a house and everybody else that lived there live right on top of it, where that can't even show. Say if the girl's body was to be found, that would in fact, them burying her up under the ground like that and letting the house sit on top of where she buried, there will be no physical evidence as in how she was killed. That's what I'm trying to say. People let stuff like that bypass their eyes and not even think. I wonder if police ever considered that. I wonder. I need them to watch this video. If they ever consider what I just said. Is it a house sitting there or is it a, what is it? Business sitting there? I thought I saw somewhere that a house was supposed to be built, foundation laid and everything, which means the young girl might be in fact laid right at the bottom, as in underneath, and whoever killed her or something crazy more than likely possibly got away with the crime, because that was possibly the reason why they put her there in the first place. Because if you crack a child upside the head and say you're a parent or family, whoever else, right, there's no evidence in that. And it ain't like when I mentioned the floorboard. See, when I mentioned the floorboard and I said I think the parents possibly murdered that child, and not only that, they covered the evidence, and I called out the floorboard. I'm like, you know what, I don't know why, yes, I don't know why I could feel that the girl was buried somewhere right in that environment, and that will make any FBI deputy make them sick to their stomach. Yes, possibly if they didn't consider that as in the reason why they possibly buried her there up under the developing area. That covers evidence. That's where the whole game, as in the plot, completely stalls out. If you don't have no evidence in finding somebody, then what? What conclusion comes from that? That didn't, because when I first read about this, I'm like, that does not make sense. Who has land to their disposal? I'm saying where Asia and all them lived at, out in that area, her parents and all them, if they had something to do with it. Yes, I do feel that the parents, that's not slandering anybody. It's just saying what I feel. You can agree to disagree, whatever. But who has full land out in the country to their disposal? Yes, disposal. Just what I just said, disposal. Got full country land everywhere, acres on end, and yet they pick a new developing area to bury a bag and possibly a young baby on top of it. And then not only that, allow a house or whatever to be sitting right on top of their evidence. That is crazy. Because if the young girl is not found and we going almost into the 19-20 year mark, then where is she? See what I'm saying? More than likely underground, under somebody's house, after somebody done tiptoed in the dark, claiming that they were going to get some candy, You never know about these parents. Some of them are willing and evil just enough to knock their own kid in the head and possibly could have been molesting her in the process. You don't know. Just because somebody is Christian don't mean they're practicing every religion in which you think. Family have secrets is what I'm trying to say. Even in that. I would love to be friends with the FBI Sheriff's Office as in helping finding a young Asia degree. Even if they got to uproot the house in the process, and that's not a laughing joke. But somewhere, some out there, that young child's body has to be there. It just is what it is. Somewhere in that area, that house, or in, yeah, where the housing development and all that other stuff. Because years have gone by as well as days have passed. Because see, look, people gotta watch the whole video. People gotta understand. You got miles and miles of land to your disposal, and you mean to tell me you can't bury a child's bag over at the shed? Or even drop it at the shed or something? You gotta put it, you could have put it in 2 garbage bags and left it over at the shed. The lady would have found it. When I heard and seen people saying, yes I did, online, yes I did, about the fact that, well, more than likely they buried it because they wanted to be found. No, there's a deeper, heavier reason why that bag was buried the way that it was buried. More than likely a child was buried with it. To bury a child right there with that bag is to say something is being developed once again, and the child is there, and once again something is going to sit on top of it, as in sit on top of the child. Because why would you not put the bag over where the shed is? And not only that, why wouldn't you put the bag somewhere closer where Asia lives, or off the road, right off of Highway 18? Or not only that, why wouldn't you just, I don't know, why wouldn't you just like put the bag on top of the land? See what I'm saying? There's symbolism to even a buried bag. That's all I'm saying. Me, I ain't want to just, whatever. People that don't like me based upon what I say, whatever. There's no loss on my end, because see, even a conclusion has to come out of that, as in the situation and learning and understanding that you don't just bury a bag unless something else goes with it. Miles and miles of lands to disposal. And yet candy wrappers were allowed to be placed. And yet candy wrappers don't even hold as much value as a young child's body. See what I'm saying? Whoever did it held much more value to the candy wrappers than they did to her body. As in they viewed the child as being cheap in a sense. Because they even held more value to the girl's hair bow. Not only that, they held more value to even her little pocketbook, wherever that was found over at the shed, as well as her pencil and her marker. They held more value to that than even the young child herself, which shows petty, in the realm of pedophilia, possibly in her house as well. That's why I said that from the beginning. I love to repeat. I'm looking at, right outside my window is a garage. In the area where I live at, it is a garage. But next to it, it's a little bit wooded area, but not big wooded, because his house is strong along the way, right? But as I look at this garage right along the way, I'm thinking to myself, who in their right mind, just consider that, who in their right mind takes a young child's bag and want it to be found when they can put it where a shed is, somewhere that people walk in and out, but they put that bag right where something is going to be placed on top of it? Because see, what would have happened if that grader machine would have yanked that bag, right? Or what if it wouldn't have yanked it at all? What if the bag was just there, as in buried, as in never pulled up? You see what I'm saying? I think whoever did it was trying to cover themselves, and cover themselves in a good way. Whereas, say, maybe they wanted the bag to be found, or maybe they didn't. More than likely, they wanted that stuff over at the shed to be found. But just in case, say whatever mishap, maybe they was trying to cover themselves all the way. They may or may not wanted the bag to be found, is what I'm trying to say. Maybe they just thought that the greater machine or whoever was there was developing and might not have been able to pull that bag up, because see, it was buried, and sometimes stuff like that don't even get pulled up. It goes straight to the garbage. Got what I'm saying? To be in 2 garbage bags is to say somebody may or may not open that garbage bag. They may or may not. See, that man, he was lucky enough right then to think, let me look what's in this bag. But sometimes your average people don't. They don't, because they know that anything could stand in that bag in the form of leaves or anything crazy like that. And they just would possibly take the bag and just throw it in the garbage and call that. But that's just so weird. That is just so crazy. You mean to tell me, see, hey, hello? No. He going wild again. Doggy's going wild. That shows how much they valued that young child's life. Whoever did that. Because see, if that contractor or whoever would have made one mess up along the way, it could have been a possibility where they would have accidentally even covered the bag with cement and stuff. Cement. Not semen. Cement with a T. One wrong move on the end of the contractor would possibly have, yes, accidentally covered even that bag. Contractors are very good at what they do, but sometimes even they mess up. As in make mistakes, as not fully seeing stuff which is there where it stands, such as garbage, waste material, bag, whatever, even in that. So it's lucky enough that the greater machine caught that, but what if it wouldn't have? And they would have just laid foundation. Police will completely be left hanging in the hanging. Yes, they would have. I scoped even that out. What if that greater machine would have never scooped up Asia's bag? Police would have been left with nothing at all. Because more than likely, if they didn't get the bag, if the greater machine didn't yank it up, more than likely that house or whatever was built on top of the foundation where they was developing, that would have been the end of that. That bag would have been buried and possibly the child with it. And that possibly could be whoever did this possibly wanted that to be. You never know what people was thinking. You don't know what people's thinking, because see, I'm sure that's not always in the back of people's minds. Because see, I seen somewhere, see, this is where everything falls out of line. See, a purposed, what's the name for it? Because even they think they got purpose. A purposed pedophile or purpose kidnapper, as in the experience. Them type of people will more than likely burn a bag. But people that don't have experience, more than likely would just go bury a bag, as in getting rid of it. I'm thinking they wouldn't even think to go put the bag into an incinerator or something. Somebody that lacks experience, as in being inexperienced. That's why I say a parent could possibly have killed her. I wonder if police considered that. A parent. They can't get mad at me. No, you can't. Sorry, FBI, you can't get mad at me. To look at everything is to look at everybody. I'm thinking an inexperienced person, because see, even that will be weight off their hands. Burying a bag somewhere, right? And even if the developing people got the bag, maybe they would have thought that the contractor them would have thrown the bag away if they found it. Because see, as I said before, to be out in any environment and see something wrapped in garbage bags is to know if it's in fact garbage. That doesn't always mean that somebody's trying to preserve something. I'm sure FBI considered that. That does not always mean that somebody's trying to preserve something. It could be they're just trying to get rid of dead weight, as in get that off their hands, to throw even the police off of them. Yes, and not recognizing they could have did it. Because where else are you? Yes, I said incinerator. You can in fact possibly burn a bag, right? But where is your average everyday woman and man going to get rid of a child's bag like that? Where do you take a... let me think right quick. That is not going to happen on my end. But I'm thinking if I was a kidnapper, supposedly, could be one of her parents. But if I was to take a child's bag, where would I go to burn her bag if I wanted to get it off my hands? See what I'm saying? Where do people take stuff like that? After a murder has committed, where do they burn stuff? Would they burn it in their backyard in a barbecue grill or something like that? Somebody need to question this with me. I should make a video pertaining to that. If you got evidence and you're going to get rid of it, how do you get rid of it? Is there... more likely I would probably have to look that up on Google just to find out, because that don't make sense. How do you get rid of it? That's not... does that make sense or does it not? I mean, that's crazy. It's funny, but it's not. But I can't really see somebody going out in their backyard with a barbecue grill, torching it down with some gas. Yes, a young child's bag, and then setting it on fire, as in flames everywhere. So what do people do? Because you can't take a bag like that out to the city dump. You can't. I don't think so. Or would you? Would a person take a bag out to... because even people go through garbage. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. People has been known to go through garbage, as in pick through garbage, pick through fields and all type of crazy stuff. Landfills and everything else. There are in fact dumpster divers as well. I made a video about that. Dumpster diving. People in fact do that. So, maybe they did want her bag to be found. Or maybe they didn't. Who knows? But see, if it was one of her parents, they couldn't bury it in the backyard, no way. Because see, people in the past have been known to do certain things like that. Yes, even with their own children, burying their stuff. And then it's later on found. So they would have to in fact get that off their premises. Yes, they would. A child's bag. Because any type of mark and police looking all over a parent's premises after a child has gone missing and say something don't look right pertaining to the grass, that would in fact point in position of evidence itself. Yes, as in a dug up path or something crazy like that. In the parent's front lawn or backyard. More than likely backyard. So that wouldn't work out. They would have to get rid of her bag if they did it themselves. But not only that, even if they was to burn it, as in people have said, well, usually experienced people get rid of bags by burning it. Well, even if a parent has something to do with it, where are they going to go to burn it? Because they can be seen even in that. Because to start a fire, to light a match in the middle of the night and be on somebody else's property, burning up something, is to know you're going to be seen doing even that, as in burning up stuff, incinerating. Despite you living out in the country, because even that is owned by somebody. Some of them lands out there that's empty lots. Right? So I'm just thinking, let me think. If I was a parent, I'm repeating again because I'm trying to figure this out. If I was a parent and I murdered my child or something crazy like that, I'm sorry to say that, but my deepest apologies. I'm trying to figure that out. Because see, nowhere is it mentioned in a clause that you can't murder your own child. And not only that, it's not mentioned that you can't bury a bag or even burn it, right? I'm saying at birth. Because see, a pedophile, check me on this, a pedophile kidnapper, them type of people, as in I'm saying people that's not blood family to Asia, them type of people would have in fact burned that bag somewhere. They don't care who land it's on. A pedophile kidnapper, they don't have respect in the first place. They lack respect of all kinds, because to just be taking people's children is to know you don't respect, use a young girl up until she has nothing else to give you in the form of sex bodily, and then throw her away. That shows a lack of character as well as a lack of respect for that other person, their character, the child. So yes, they more than likely, I can see a pedophile kidnapper being on anybody's land late at night. Yes, burning up something and not caring. Even if somebody called it in from the street, said they seen somebody burning something out in the field, you got what I'm saying? A pedophile kidnapper ain't gonna care, because even he don't care about going to jail. See what I'm saying? They sick like that because they know they possibly get out again and go back again and still don't care. That's their mindset. They're institutionalized in a sense. So that part about somebody not burning up her bag, that's off as well. That's like completely off. That's why I said it points to the family. Because if you a family of Asias and you can't go nowhere and burn her bag without being seen, then what to do with it? You can't put it back in the closet because the FBI might want to come back and re-interview and scope out the house again. You can't keep it in your car, because even guilt will point into that. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure any black male such as her father fear getting pulled over by police. And then there you go with a bag in your trunk or something crazy, in the back seat or something. So if you're a family of Asias and say you killed her, what do you do with her bag? Because see, a pedophile, you know what a pedophile, how sick they are and how they don't, that's not really saying, I'm just saying they need help. I'm not trying to put them down. They need help. Pedophiles need help by psychology terms. I'm not trying to say I'm above them, but a pedophile more than likely would just drop Asia's bag yes, they would. They would have put it in a dumpster and possibly put her body with it. That's how pedophiles think. As in the kidnapper, abduction. They the type of people, they hide stuff, right? Because to kidnap something, that's what you do when you're chaining people up in your house. But then when they're ready to get rid of something, as in go search out and find new prey, that's just that. They will more than likely put her in a dumpster and put her bag with it and call it a day. And yet, for Asia's crime situation story, her story speaks a little bit too personal. As in right at home, as in home, 4 walls of home. Getting rid of evidence as well as planting it outside the home. Because that sort of thing cannot be on even their land premises. So to get rid of it is to put it somewhere else. Point it in different directions to make it look like you didn't do it. Pertaining to her home life. And possibly molestation, abuse, or something in that form. Because what was I was looking at a YouTube video earlier, and it was about this lady who had came out her apartment. Was that California? I think it was somewhere in San Francisco, where it was human remains, bones. It was a daughter and a child that was found right where it was like a planting. You know how like in the city, certain cities, even New York have them, when you walk down the block, it'd be like these square type of things and the trees be planted right there, right? Yes, it was found like in one of those type of planting circle type of things, and it was a mother and daughter remains. They were dead. The woman could literally see the teeth. Somebody put that there. See what I'm saying? That's how real kidnappers, yes, and killers do their work. Once they're ready to get rid of you, they just dump you off. Sometimes just enough to be picked up. Like I stated on John Walsh's son, how they just, yes, severed that young boy's Adam Walsh throat and just threw his head over in the field. That guy. Was his last name Toole? I can't remember if his last name was Toole. But that's how real pedophile killers do. But when it seems like it's when it's more close to the family, they usually bury the body. That's how they get rid of their evidence. They usually bury the body or something crazy like that. Because if another say 10 years come, what year is this? 2018. I say if another 5 years that Asia is not found, more than likely she's dead and possibly up under that house, as I stated before, in which that land was being developed. She got to be somewhere right up underneath it. More than likely right up underneath it. Because I kept thinking why something kept pointing me to when I made that video, when I kept saying up under the floorboard, up under the floorboard. I don't know what that was. Like something was sensing me a feeling. Floorboard. I'm thinking, what floorboard? You know how you say something sometimes and you're actually right? Not pertaining to this, not like that, but it's been sometimes I mention stuff pertaining to intuition and I'd be right and not completely off. Yes, I do. When I said I had nightmares, I had nightmares the day before, as well as days before my uncle got murdered by his girlfriend. Now, I had never met his girlfriend. I still got my uncle's car. He gave it to me. Way back in when was that? 2004. My uncle gave me that car. It was my birthday gift. It was brand new. And you know what's so interesting? I was in North Carolina when I seen that car on the lot. Yes, I was. I was in North Carolina one of the first times when I seen that car on the lot, and I said, I want that car. And later on, I got it from my uncle, but he was brutally murdered. His brains was blown out and his body was set on fire by his girlfriend. I had nightmares before where I could see, yes, a womanly figure in a basement washing off clothes, washing blood off of clothes. I seen this. I seen it to the fact I would wake up screaming from nightmares and stuff like that. Like, I still had panic attacks years later. And then, yes, coming up to the days right when he was murdered, right after, I seen. It took police a whole year to find out who did it. I seen it, and I sensed it, and I told my family and everybody else. I said a woman did it. A woman and a man did it. I literally, in my dream, I seen my uncle screaming. He was on the side of his bed screaming. Screaming, screaming, screaming. In the worst way you can scream. Yes. Big, right? Screaming. And as he was screaming, it was a man and woman walking out the door, and I was literally in tears in the dream, crying over his body as he was dying. And the woman and the man was literally walking. I could see, as I was looking out the window, I could see them walking past. And as soon as I woke up, I told my mom, I told everybody, I told my granny, I said it was a woman that did it. And she had a man with her. And come to find out, yes, it took a whole year for police to find out who did it. It was in fact a woman as well as a man. Yes, it was. And come to find out, my first cousin, my mother's brother's son, was friends with the woman's daughter who did it. And another crazy thing was a friend that I went to college with wanted that girl who her mother killed my uncle. He wanted me and the girl to be friends. Yes. It was so crazy how we found out this situation that happened. It was so crazy. But based upon my dream, I was the first one that seen that. Set his body on fire. Who does that? So when it comes to Asia, I just was like, when I made that first video, I don't know why I was like, man, I feel that her mother and her father both had something to do with it. I could be completely wrong. That would be devastating on my end if I find out that wasn't the case. But I sensed that they possibly had something to do with it, where the father was possibly molesting the girl. You got what I'm saying? And one of them killed her. And then that night, both of them planted stuff together. As in cleaned up whatever, right? And planted her stuff, because the way her stuff was strewn along, it almost make it seem like it was two people and not one. And to be that close to home at night, I don't know, it's just something about even their time frame is off. Even everything about that family just seems really suspicious. I don't know. And so when I said the floorboard, when I was like, FBI need to check the floorboard, I don't know why I kept sensing Asia was like underground. Like buried, as sad as that sound. like very buried. Yes, like her bag was buried. So that's why I said that. Somebody is probably watching that video like, what does she mean check the floorboard? Buried underground. Did I mention that when I said somebody need to, what did I say? I said somebody need to look. FBI needs to go through the house. That's what I said. FBI needs to use a black UV light and look through all that, look throughout the house to make sure there was no blood and semen anywhere, even in her bedroom. But I said not only that, about the house, they need to look up under the floor. Something I was saying like that. But when I get to thinking about where that area of land was being developed, maybe that's where she's underground at. Up under that house. Because that's up under a floorboard as well. Once you put a house on top of land, that's it. You can't remove it. That's just so sick. This whole situation is just sick to me. And the more I pry deeper into it, as in go much more further and try to scope out, like many other people that have blogs and all that other stuff, it just be like so sick. It's tormenting to the brain is what I'm trying to say. Because see, I got nieces myself. And I myself wouldn't know what to do if something like that was to happen. I pray their universe don't allow something like that to happen. But it just, when you look at somebody's photograph and you see how adorable they were, and then they had the little cheeks, Asia had the little cheeks like she did, the first thing that comes to my mind is how that bag was buried. And not only that, the simple fact that somebody will put it right where something is going to be placed on top of the area, such as a house. That's the most sickest thing you can do. Because to cover some evidence is to almost cover it once again all the way. You can't, it's not like you can go up underground after something is built there on top. Ain't like you can go back up underground and build or pull out a dead body if it's there. That's like almost the end of that, if she's dead. I keep sensing she is. I could be wrong. Asia might turn up 5 years from now alive. Who knows? But I just be sensing that she's dead and she's up under something. And that's the first time I thought of that. Like, well, maybe she's up under that house that they built, laid the foundation. And what's so crazy was, you know what was so crazy? I did on one of, if you go back, I'm trying to think what video that was. Before I started making any of these videos, there was a young girl's video, an Asia Degree video, when I had left a comment. And I said, oh my gosh, her stuff was found in the shed. That's when I was first learning about the case. What came to my mind was the child is possibly buried up under the shed. That's why I was thinking, like, I don't know why. I don't know why. My deepest apologies to FBI if they see this, because I know that will possibly make them distraught, seeing they're trying to solve a case. But I was like, yes, that was the first thing. That was the very first thing. So I done thought about the girl being buried 3 times. In my first video, when I said maybe the family buried her somewhere up under their house. I don't know what type of house they live in, but even people can do that. If the house is if the house has a wait, let me think. What is those houses? I keep forgetting that. Oh my gosh. Because I made that in my first video as well. Because my mom was going to buy one. Crawl space. That's what it is. Crawl space. It took me forever to remember that. My mom wanted to buy a house a few years back. But I told her not to because moisture tends to build up underneath it from the crawl space. So I was saying if a person has a crawl space, it's a possibility, because even I think even up under that is dirt and stuff like that. I said even if somebody has a house and it has crawl space, it's a possibility a body could be found there. That's what I said in my first video. As in something can be dug up underneath that, depending on how the crawl space is. Because some people's crawl spaces, depending on what state you live in, Here is dirt right where the crawl space is. Yes, it is. It's dirt and spiders and everything else. And that type of thing. That's why it's a crawl space. Because it's the house. Then the house is up here. But then you got that big old gap like this, where you're able to crawl right up underneath. And that's where a lot of moisture, how people get mold in their house and stuff like that. Which is why you have to have good insulation put in down there. But if it's dirt and stuff like that, you can in fact hide a dead body down there. That's why I mentioned that about Asia in my first video. The first time. And then when I said about, you know, because she had been buried up under the shed, I didn't know anything about the shed completely. Turner upholstery. I didn't understand, you know, how it actually looked and stuff like that. The framework material. Was it open? You know, how high did it sit? How low did it sit? Was it a big shed, or was it, you know, medium size or small, right? When I seen the photos, then that showed and told me what that was. I'm thinking, nah, more than likely, if they buried that girl bag out in that further distance of where it was, more than likely they possibly buried her too with it. Because they knew the house was going to be right on top of her. That's just a freak accident waiting to happen. And possibly did. Who knows? I'm not saying that that's the conclusion, but that's almost what it's seeming like, because she still ain't came home. If a kidnapper abductor took her, I stated before, they're pedophiles. He would have wanted her bag with him and not planning it like that, unless there was a heavy motive behind it. Because I'm like, you know what? That will be so, you know, I ain't really thinking about whoever, but when it comes to Asia's grandmother, that's the most sickest feeling that even a grandmother can endure in the heart. Yes, it is, knowing that your grandbaby could possibly be dead and gone and buried up under somebody's house. And yet even somebody ain't telling whoever that did it or took her. Even if they took her from the bed out, right? I'm thinking the best you could give even a grandmother is the rightful burying of her child, as in done the proper way, and not just, I don't like stuff like that. That bothers me. Even a young child like that, they hold value. Because just because one person or two people might not have valued her, don't mean that the world and everybody else don't value her. Sometimes people value you that you don't even know. You know what I'm saying? And them looking in at the situation, seeing, you know what, you were 9 years old, you were young, too young to be outside at that age and at that time. And yet if you're dead, I just feel that you deserve a proper burial. That's how I feel about a young Asia degree. You don't just put somebody, throw somebody out in the field somewhere and bury them down or whatever crazy, which could have possibly taken place. Nobody has said, but that's still wrong. Because to do something like that is to show you have no value for human life itself. And not only that, that's completely inhumane. That's in fact what that is. That's totally inhumane. But some people live, we are all known to be selfish human beings, but some people live and think only of themselves, where they don't recognize the simple fact they're taking advantage of young innocent children and then getting rid of them. I don't like stuff like that. Because that would in fact, I ain't even religious, that would in fact make you ask God, why did God even put them type of people here? Why would God put them type of people on this earth to say butcher children, chop their heads off, and do all type of brutally type of mentally unsound stuff to children like that? And then they're allowed to get away with it. That's no excuse. That's no excuse, no matter how sick a person is. Because in my mind, all I can think of, the fear. I think that's what bothers me the most in all this, is the fear. Just like with little Adam Walsh, John Walsh's son, when that man cut that little boy's head off like that and left it in the field for them fishermen or whoever that found it, after he done took the little boy away from the mall, away from his mom. Yes, that's just, I don't like, it's just gruesome. Because I just think about that little boy, John Walsh's son, and the fear that was more likely in his eyes before that man cut his head off. I will hope and pray, despite not being religious, that that man killed him first. Without that little bit, I would see something like that. If something was to happen like that, where a child is murdered, I would just hope that that would be something somebody would do in their sleep or something. Get what I'm saying? Where they kill somebody that young age and they're unaware to it. That way they don't completely feel the pain. And not only that, they don't see that aspect coming. Because that's just the worst thing. That's the worst thing. It's bothersome. And that makes people outside that don't know those type of kids, right? The ones that get taken like that and killed brutally. That makes individuals like myself and other people grieve for the child. That's just crazy. That's crazy. Because you be sitting there thinking, when a child, see, that's what I hate to think. When a kid is sitting there, their intuition has to be going off, knowing that they're going to die in the hands of a kidnapper, murder, right? And they possibly know that it's coming, but just the fear possibly that they feel. And not only that, they don't have like no parent nowhere to comfort them, because sometimes parents and young children get murdered together, right? Stabbed lethally to death, shot to death, hung to death, right? But I think that would even be better than, say, just a young child dying by themselves. I don't like stuff like that. That just makes me completely sick. And not only that, it makes me leery of other people, as in the fear of myself to stand next to certain grown men, pertaining, and even sometimes next to grown women, because stuff like that just tends to happen. And I know they ain't got no interest in taking me because I'm grown, and yet and still, young babies like that shouldn't be killed and murdered in that manner. Because it makes you question God. Like, you mean tell me this grown man possibly tied up this little boy and whoever else by his hands, as a young child is screaming and clutching a chair with duct tape, knowing that somebody's about to take his head off with an axe? Like, it makes you wonder, like, what type of God would allow that to happen? What type of God would allow that to happen? I can't see with even that. A young kid screaming and crying, knowing somebody is about to do some form of almost capital. Isn't that like capital punishment, when you just kill somebody by decapitation, by taking their head or something off? Like, why? Most kids have not deserved anything for them to even, I mean, you got all type of crazy people out here that I just don't understand sometimes, the world. You got people that get away with all type of crimes and they don't go to jail, and yet some of these kids that are kidnapped, abducted, and even supposedly abducted, that even their own parents do that, that's enough to even give you or I, the viewer, nightmares. You know what I'm saying? It just, it's crazy. I think that's all to be said about that. It's bothersome. All type of people are allowed to get away with all type of crimes, and yet they not saying what they done did, and yet young innocent babies and kids are getting their head hacked off with axes and crazy stuff like that, or being buried, and some of them buried alive. Like, come on, man. Like, that's it. I'm about to end this video. I be trying not to get mad or get an attitude, but it's so bothersome. Like, some of the videos that I be watching, how some of these abductors, they don't even hardly serve no time. I think I seen something. What was that I seen? It was a man. I think that boy name was Jacob something. And they found him. Was it? I can't remember. I think it was over 15, 16 years later they found his body. The guy that killed him told the police and all them where his body was at to go find it, right? But they put this man in protective custody. That was part of his plea deal. This man went and killed this young boy. And then they gonna send him off to prison and kill him in the worst way you can kill him. Brutally killed the young boy. And then police gonna put him in protective custody under a plea deal. Like, are you serious? You mean to tell me this little boy got killed in the worst way you can kill people, and this grown man, asshole, yes, it's what he is, asshole, complete asshole, scared to be put in jail with all the rest of the grown men? Because they know he knew, in fact, they was going to get, yes, in his ass over the simple fact of what he did. You killed somebody like that, a child of all people, and then you're given protective custody. I'm just like, that has to be a complete joke. Is it or is it not? I want you, the viewer, to tell me. Because if some of this stuff be going down the way it be going down, you be thinking like, man, stuff is just a complete joke. Maybe God is playing jokes or something. But it does not look right. And not only that, some of these kids haven't even been given a chance and opportunity to reach their full potential. That's where the selfish part comes from. The aspect, I'm saying. You got 9, 10-year-old children being brutally murdered, put to death, some by their own parents' hands and some by outside kidnappers. And they ain't even get a chance to live a whole full life like everybody else, while everybody else is sitting on this earth wasting their life away. Not the majority, but you do got people on this earth that sit and waste their life away, while some of these young kids being killed could be brought back and be allowed to live theirs. Like, why do people that waste their life away not doing anything and going back and forth to jail, why can't God just let those people just die off and bring all the kids back who were murdered and kidnapped? That does not make sense to me. I always question, and I usually piss people off with that, because some of the stuff I be seeing I absolutely don't like. Some stuff be breaking my heart. I'm thinking like, man, what if you the viewer, or I was sitting there and somebody, like, say, even if it was a parent or somebody, you knew that you were about to die or something crazy like that, just the fear in that. And if you was a young child as it's happening, I'm saying, if you were a young child like Asia's age or something like that, and you knew it was coming, just imagine the fear. Like, that just put tears in my eyes of the fear that some of these children have to feel. And even for many of them that when they're kidnapped and they're held captive for years, say chained up. I saw about the story about the young child that her kidnapper was like a sadist. That's when they get off on putting fear on you and pain and all that other stuff, right? Forcing himself on you and putting fear and all that other stuff. He would lock her in a box at the end of his bed at night before he went to sleep. Just craziness. To live like that in a form of captivity, sometimes, if a person is going to be forced to live like that, say forever to the day that they die, more likely the kidnapper will have to die before they do. But who's to say, because some of them even got wives, right? But you would sometimes hope that the child is more likely dead than having to live in captivity like that for the rest of their life. Because that's a horrible way to live. That's a trashy way to live. Be sleeping in somebody's box. Not even bigger than a cubby hole itself. The girl could hardly even turn around in the box she was in at the foot of somebody's bed. God, because he's a sadist, right? That don't make sense. This room, even this living room I'm in, This earth we own, it's not enough room for those type of people that do those type of things. As in, they don't need to be here living this earth. They use up too much human existence is what I'm trying to say. The children that are put to death and all that other stuff need to be brought back. And those type of people need to die off. That's just what I feel. My heart is so real in me saying this. Because tragedy is just that. So, I think I'm going to end this video because I'll be getting all emotional on camera. Like one of the videos I was going to not upload because I was crying in the video. But I was just really mad. Just really, really mad and heated. Human beings have human emotions. And you do put your emotions to the side to get out what you have to say. But some stuff just be too much sometimes. As in bothersome. So, I hope you... let me know what you feel when I spoke on the construction site. What do you think was the purpose of them burying that bag where it was at? Do you think Asia was buried with the bag somewhere right there in the premises of that developed area, which is now, I think, a house? I don't know if it was a business built there. I think it was a house. Do you think Asia's body stands up underneath that establishment? I want you to tell me where she possibly could be. Because we're going into how many years and she's still yet to be found. So that's all to be said about that one. So, yes.